Welcome, everyone, to the One More Game podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jeremy Culver, a.k.a. Darce, and with me is the California Thirst Quencher, Pete Legia. Pete, how you doing, man?
Not too bad. Had a busy last couple of days of work. I don't know exactly. I assume it's mostly in the same time frame. But we had state basketball finals the last couple of days, and we, at least for our region, we broadcast basically all the state basketball finals.
Mm-hmm.
So that was we did several of the games also broadcast on our news and our sporting networks. So it's simulcast that way, and also we had Dodgers spring training, we had a Lakers game, we had some Hawaii games that happened. So I think over a span of 2 days, we had surfing, even though that was a tape delay. Over the span of 2 days, we had something like, I think, 25 live events between the 2 days. But we knocked it all out, and now we're here. So I got through it. Even with the daylight savings time spring forward, but we're ready to go.
Yeah. I will say today was a rough one to get up for. Normally, daylight savings time does not impact me too much, but for some reason today it was just like, yeah, I wasn't feeling it. I wanted more sleep. I wanted to lay in bed more, but of course I had more things to do, including the podcast. So I had to get up, shake the cobwebs off of the face and embrace daylight saving time so we can do this podcast here. So everybody, welcome to the One More Game podcast. This is a podcast that is centered around making sure you're informed about all the video game news happening around the world, whether it's Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, or PC. If there's news that you need to know about, we'll make sure that you know about it. When you're listening to this on your podcast service, make sure you hit the subscribe button or the follow button, depending on what your service offers. And if your podcast service allows reviews, please leave a 5-star review and tell everyone why you love the One More Game podcast, because we really enjoy bringing this to you each and every week. If you'd like to be part of the show by asking a question or suggesting a topic for discussion, head on over to pressstartnews.net/onemoregame and fill out that submission form, and your submission could be used on the next episode. Or you can drop it off live in chat as we record it here at youtube.com/presssstart28. Or I guess I should say, because, well, that link still works. There is the updated way that YouTube does their things now. So it is youtube.com/@presssstart28. And you'll, of course, be here as we record these things. I hate that web addresses are adding the @sign. It's like, just leave it at the slash. I don't know. There must be something server side wide why they have to do it, but it is slightly annoying to me because I'll type it in and then it'll be like, this page does not work. And it's like, no, I know it works. Just now I have to add that @sign. So make sure
that must be why that must be why the Wizards of the Coast links that I typically use have not been working. Sometimes. Sometimes I get links from some of my buddies and it's just like, click on it. It's like, this page does not exist or cannot be found. And it's like, well, Why is there a link to it? That doesn't make any damn sense.
Yeah, it's because a lot of places are starting to use the @sign. TikTok was the first one that I knew that used it, and now YouTube has added it as well to their links. But everybody, if this is your first time to the podcast, welcome to the podcast. I hope you enjoy your listen, and I hope you enjoy your stay. But if you are returning, you already know what it is. We start off every single podcast talking about what we've been playing lately. So, Pete, what have you been playing lately?
I played what might have been one of the worst games I played in a long time, and I want to add a couple of caveats to this. One, I only played like 2.5-3 hours of it, which that's also including the time where I probably got sidetracked for about a half hour or whatever, doing other stuff, checking my phone or whatever.
Yeah.
That's also a caveat of opening into the world. I was immediately drawn to it by thinking and comparing it to one of my favorite games of all time, which is BioShock Infinite, because the opening part really have you ever played BioShock Infinite?
Yeah, remember you made me play it when we were roommates.
Did I? I don't remember. I don't remember that. Anyway, so I made you play it so you know. After you climb up the tower in BioShock Infinite and you get shot up in the air and you kind of are descending upon the city that's in the sky kind of thing. There's a lot of that going on. in the opening sequence. I should describe or explain what the game is. Atomic Heart is an action adventure shooter kind of style of game. Set in post World War II. I think it's like supposed to be the 50s, circa thereabouts. The 1950s. You follow the USSR actually, and you follow a character. Let's see if I can get the name. Agent P3, who's a World War II veteran. And basically, the USSR, some scientists there has created some basically utopia, where robots go around and like do a bunch of the work, and you can live there. And it's also like they have some kind of like technology where you can instantly just basically learn a PhD, which, that kind of stuff never just goes poorly in any sort of science fiction ever at any point. So you can clearly tell nothing bad was going to happen. So as the game progresses, you get a look at this utopian city that's in the middle of the USSR. That's supposed to be like really cool and everything like that. And then it turns into Terminator, where all the robots basically go haywire and start killing everybody. And you're fighting against the robots. So it was a lot less like BioShock Infinite. Maybe it turns more into that after a little while. One of the things that I dislike the least, because like if it's not like it doesn't have the same messaging as BioShock Infinite did, which is one of the reasons that drew me to that game. That's fine, but it almost felt like the game, the fight, the aspects of like the action aspects was almost more like trying to be like a survival horror kind of game, like you were playing. Resident Evil kind of, because you're going around, you start out with like a shotgun but you only usually find, at least in the early parts of the game, I was only finding like 3 or 4 shells at a time. So like I only had like maximum of like 6 like ammo pieces. So like I had this axe that I was using a lot, which was really like the way, how like in survival horror games, it kind of feels like it's a lot slower when you use the axe. Like you would actually be if you're actually swinging like a really cumbersome like makeshift weapon that's more like a tool, like an axe. But like, so you're fighting these robots that are like able to pounce on you and like try to punch you and kill you, and you're just sitting there just going like, like, and you're trying to dodge in the middle, like moving around and stuff like that. And it just felt really clunky. It wasn't as snappy as like an action adventure like a BioShock I would have been. I really grew disinterested pretty quickly. And then I did some research on it. There's also some controversies around it surrounding using or harvesting data of users based in Russia and providing it to Russia's security services. The users of the game, apparently. You got the whole Russia invading Ukraine thing going on. That too, there's a little bit of stuff about that. And after a little while, I kind of just got disinterested and started playing a lot of Octopath Traveler 2. So you could probably argue I didn't give the game a fair shake. But between going in with a really high thought process of how the game was going to go with BioShock Infinite and how much I love that game, to how quickly it cratered to not being BioShock Infinite, I really grew kind of disinterested. I would like to give it another chance, maybe in a little while, but I just don't think the game was for me. I looked up at some of the reviews of it. It's kind of mixed. Almost like a critical. It's one of those things where it's like got critical acclaim, but it's like commercially not necessarily doing so well. Although I did look at Steam, and I think it said all reviews are very positive for it. Although you look at Metacritic, it's like 76, 71, 72. Game Informer gave it like a 7.75. GameSpot gave it like a 6 out of 10, but IGN gave it an 8. So kind of like, a little bit of mixed reviews going on there. But yeah, not as good as I would have liked that game to be, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I know with Atomic Heart, it seems like you're not alone. There's a number of people who have said that it's like really, really bad. But there's also been people who like love it, and I haven't tried it myself, so I can't speak on it. The only thing that I can speak on is the writing has been, and at least what I've seen has been pretty rough, especially the number of times. I cannot remember the exact line, but he said like the character has some like weird fascination with saying like crispy critters or something like that. And
I don't know, he has a fascination with the F word. I do know that a lot.
There's that too, but like you can find videos where it's literally just like montages of him saying like, I think it's crispy critters is what he says like a lot.
Well, you gotta get the alliteration, you know, that's what makes it catchy and intelligent.
Yeah,
I mean, the writing was a little suspect as well. Didn't really bring that up because if I don't like the writing or I don't like the voice acting, I usually like turn down the volume and like put on like some music or whatever. So that I'm just kind of whatever on that in a lot of cases. But yeah, I will say the lines I heard was just basically him swearing and like looking down on a lot of like random people, except for like the one dude who operated on him to save him, which is kind of like, okay, cool. But like, you don't have to be an asshole to literally every other person that you meet, but sure.
Yeah. I do have to ask real quick because I think I ask you every episode, so I just want to see, have you played Teppen yet?
Nope.
Dang. All right. Anyway, that's
We'll try it. Even though I had 2 weeks, we'll try it again. I got too wrapped up in Octopath too. I'll try it again this week. We'll see what happens.
Good. And yes, as you brought up, I will say, of course, thank you all for being okay with us not recording last week. Some things came up last minute that kind of forced us not to, and then
life happened.
Yeah, and then
life happened. Jeremy got overwhelmed. I got overwhelmed. I said, "Fuck it, I'm not doing the podcast." So we took a break last week. You can blame me for that, and I don't care.
I took the whole break actually. I didn't even stream Tuesday or Friday. Tuesday was unintentional. Friday was intentional. I just did not want to stream. So, with that being said, I'm going to talk about two things real quick. The first one is I've been playing a lot of The Quarry. I made mention of it maybe recently, but I'm having fun with it. It's basically same game from like Supermassive Games, same people who made Until Dawn or the Dark Pictures Anthology. My wife and I have been playing it. It's also been recently added to PS Plus, so those that have it can go and check that out if they want. But I'm having a good time with it. There's been some weird parts, like some like performance things, but it's not like anything that's like really jarring. So like I'm not gonna say it detracts from the experience. It's just things I noticed. But all the pieces that you want of those games and their sequences are there. So go check it out. The game I want to talk about, and I've like, Pete, not even kidding, have just been like straight addicted to this game. You can ask my wife. I wake up in the morning, pretty much turn it on right away, and then play it for a while, and then later in the day turn it back on and play it some more. And that is Street Fighter Duels. It is a mobile game that came obviously from Capcom, and it is supposed to be basically like this RPG type game in a sense. And again, it's a mobile game. For those that don't know, like to summarize it, basically it has two different components in the game. You have your creation of your party. You bring a group of 4 combatants, and you can also have some like assist characters that lend some strength to your main group. But they go and fight. They basically auto fight, and then you just choose when their super meter has been built up, when you want to use their super and who you want to use. And of course, from there, you build combos. So before you even go into combat, you would choose like a character who might do the first part of the combo, the second part of the combo, the third part of the combo. But part of that is leveling up the character to unlock that section of the combo. You can also run it in auto mode, just like with any other mobile game, right? So it'll fight for you. And that's pretty much what I do when I like have leveled up my characters enough that I kind of just let it run itself and I don't have to mess with it because it'll take care of itself. But the The thing that's just been, or the other component though, is to help you with leveling. Is there is an idle mode. So there is like on one of the screens, there's a persistent idle type of combat that always is going on, and you can get through that idle combat various experience, power up stuff, money, which is used to level up your characters and things, and that like helps you, in my opinion, avoid having to spend money in the gacha, the microtransaction systems of the game, because that can be a little bit intrusive, in my honest opinion.
They promote it a lot.
Yeah, they promote it a lot. It'll randomly pop up with you at times too, being like, hey, you got a special, you should spend the money to utilize this special. And it's like, I don't want to use it. But it is a ton of fun. I have been playing it like crazy. My characters are fairly strong, but I am still nowhere near the strongest. Some people are like so far ahead of me, even with me playing basically since day one. So I'm a little, I feel like those are the people who are like, I'm totally into this, I'm spending money on it. I never really spend money in mobile games. I just kind of play them and enjoy them, and Street Fighter Duel is a good one. And for those that decide to go pick it up and play it, because again, it is fun, we do have a press start guild in the game. You got to get to a certain point where you can unlock it, but it's called the Press Start Crew, all one word. Come join it. Cobalt Hawk, who's in chat, he is part of the group too. So of course you can come join me and Cobalt Hawk and a couple of others that are in there, but come join us if you play it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've played it basically every day since I started playing it.
Reference two things really quick. Referencing Cobalt Hawk calling us slackers. Hell yeah, we are. Sometimes we want to take a break. Get over it. Deal with it. Number two, you probably heard me typing. That was me messaging Winnie on Facebook. Is Jeremy addicted to Street Fighter Duels? And the answer was yes, lol. So I literally asked your wife, and she literally said yes.
Yeah. And pretty much, like I said, I wake up in the morning, the very first thing I do is I turn on Street Fighter Duels to grab the idle stuff, grab all my idle experience, and of course get my daily login so I don't forget.
I'm downloading it right now.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, it's like,
all right. So I could be in our silly little group that I probably should be a part of.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick before we go on into our catalog of topics here, I do want to pass along the two games that you can buy to help support here at Press Start. Both of these are coming from Green Man Gaming, just so that you guys can keep that in mind. The first one is Gotham Knights. So Gotham Knights, those that might remember, was made by the Warner Brothers Studios. It is a can be played solo, but also played co-op, like action beat 'em up game. I know it did not get the best of reviews. However, Gotham Knights is currently 66% off over on Green Man Gaming, making it $20.40. And Cobalt Hawk, who did like that game, really told me it is a great game with friends. And I think at $20.40, that is a great price to jump in and try it out for yourself and see how you like it. So go pick that up. You can support here. Press start with that. Also, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. That's a game from Gearbox, of course, set in the Borderlands universe, but it is a spin-off, basically, where Tiny Tina is doing a Dungeons and Dragons type component to the world, which is, it was fun. I have it. I haven't beaten it, but I did enjoy it. I do like it. I need to go back to it. But both the Epic Game Store version as well as the Steam version are currently 56% off, making it $26.10. So again, another one that is a good price, and you can team up with friends and play it just like you could with Gotham Knights. So those are both there. And again, if you use those links down in the description and buy through there, you do support here. Press start with that. But let's get to the catalog of topics, because we have quite the list to get to. And we have Starfield. We got a new release date for it and details on the Xbox Showcase. Suicide Squad delayed yet again. And Forspoken sales are, quote, lackluster. That's all coming up here on the One More Game podcast. But we're going to start things off with our main topic, the main catalog here. And that is Starfield got delayed. So this is going to Eurogamer, written by Matt Wells. And it is Starfield delayed to September Direct showcase scheduled for June. And it goes as follows. Bethesda has pushed the release of Starfield back again, with the highly anticipated sci-fi RPG now set to arrive on September 6th. A Starfield-focused showcase will air on June 11th. Starfield was initially due to release last November, but in May, Bethesda announced it was delaying the game's launch into the first half of 2023 to ensure that players receive the best, most polished version. Now, though, with rumors of a further delay continuing to swell around the internet, Bethesda has confirmed Starfield will now arrive in the second half of 2023 on September 6th. Starfield's new release was announced in a short video presented by Bethesda's Todd Howard, who neglected to address or provide a reason for the latest delay, instead thanking fans for their support and excitement about the game. Howard also noted that the developer still has so much to show the fans, with further details now set to be showed during a special Starfield Direct on June 11th, where the Sunday before E3 week, which is going to follow Microsoft's Xbox Game Showcase, which will take place that same day. So, Pete, are you at all surprised that the game is now delayed out of the first half and into the second half of the year?
Let me answer that with another question. Are you going to pick up that phone?
I'm going to pick up that phone. I picked up the phone.
Because we fucking called it.
Hell yeah, we did.
Remember in our one of our first episodes of the new year, we were predicting things that would happen, and one of the questions was what we thought was going to be delayed. And we said on this very podcast, either Starfield or Redfall was going to be delayed because they were both projected for the exact same release time frame. And we were like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You're competing with yourself. So one of them is going to get pushed back. I don't remember if we specifically picked Starfield, but I believe at that point we might have already known, or we did a little bit after, that Redfall was going to get teased at like the next Xbox showcase or whatever, and it was pretty much clarified that like, hey, Starfield's probably going to get pushed back because it was also going to get its own thing. Was it going to be pushed back this far? I don't know if I personally thought it might have been that, because they mentioned that it was going to get its own showcase, and the way it was worded or the way it was implied seemed like it was going to be like, okay, the showcase is date X, and like maybe at the within the next month or so, they were going to do the Starfield showcase. So that was a little odd that was a little eye-opening that they're not doing the actual showcase until June 11th, almost on the same day of their next showcase. I would have thought that they would have had Starfield kind of on its own thing. Like, I think when we did the Xbox showcase episode, I believe we were thinking, I was thinking like maybe like March or late March, maybe early April at the latest. So June is a little bit kind of wild. Being a part, although that kind of makes it seem like that the next showcase, because I believe it says in the article that June 11th is the one that's it's going to be on the same day of whatever, newly confirmed Xbox Game Showcase. So it's going to be a significant part of that one would presume, even though it's going to have its own personal thing that's even more focused on it. Kind of shoving it in E3's face that they're going to do it the Sunday before the E3 week happens. That's kind of a bummer, but we already knew Xbox wasn't going to be there. They're going to kind of do their own thing around that time. So, what are you going to do? Having it pushed back to September 6th, that is, I guess it'd be third quarter of this year, right? Yeah, something like that. So that's going to be that sets them up to have Bethesda to have a big name game title around the time of Christmas a little bit, especially for like Xbox as well for their game. So maybe that makes their Christmas sales look a little bit better, even though it may not actually show up on that one in particular, but it'd be over the next couple of months. It'd be September sales plus probably in October as well, a little bit in November maybe. I'm still super interested in seeing what they got here. Science fiction, role-playing game, like those are both right up my alley. So I'm not going to say I'm going to pick it up. It's going to be day one buy, especially since Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming out this year, and I know I'm really planning on picking that up. But, I'm really interested to see what they got. I hope that the pushback, the delay was actually just because they wanted to, and I mean, also give more time if they need it, but hopefully it's like they're not having issues with the game, obviously. Hopefully it's just like, we want to be able to have a different gap between when Redfall's released and when Starfield is released. So, you know, if you want to spend money on both games, you can. It's not just like I'm going to decide on one and then lose focus on the other one and then go buy something else later. So, but really interested to see what this showcase is going to be all about.
There's a couple of things that come to mind with this when it comes to the delay and all the things around it. So like you said, you know, I kept feeling that Starfield was going to be the one that got delayed more so than Redfall, because like I kept saying is like it was that Redfall or that Starfield was supposed to come out in the first half of the year, and I kept saying but we haven't seen anything really recently, and if it was going to hit, you would think we'd start to be seeing some things, and we just weren't. So like I kind of figured it would get delayed, and of course it does. I did say, of course, the same thing is that while not to give too much, you know, flack to Xbox, this does not look good in a sense when you have the Xbox showcase saying last year, hey, all these games are coming in the next 12 months, which was before June. And then you have this, you know, your biggest one in that showcase get delayed out of it. And then not to bring it up, of course, this is likely out of their control, but they also had Hollow Knight Silksong in there. And we have nothing with Silksong since then. And that is a game that a lot of people
on it
are
until you mentioned it, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are super excited for Silksong. They've been wanting that. And so, like, that's another one where it's like, it's one of those things where don't cash a check. You can't, you know, you can't make it happen, right? You know, I'm not going to say the full lane there, the full line there, but you know what I'm meaning there. And so, you know, that's kind of those things where it's like you got to be careful with what you do. Now, it makes sense for the delay, but you know, you kind of talked about sales. There's a couple of things that you do have to keep in mind. One, remember, Starfield is going to be on Xbox Game Pass, so like that is going to impact sale anyways. Remember, almost all first party titles, Xbox has said this, comes to Game Pass. So like this is a Game Pass game. Are they really looking at sales to try to get closer to it? Maybe not. Maybe it's exactly what we've been thinking, which is you space these games out enough that it keeps people interested to subscribe because they get Redfall in May. And then, of course, you got to figure out what you got in between those months. But then in September, you got Starfield. And so, like, you keep people in there. But the thing that becomes really interesting is the games that are releasing around it, which is where you were kind of going with it, and I agree, is if you think about it, in May, you have The Legend of Zelda Tears for the Kingdom, right? In June, you have Final Fantasy 16, excuse me. You know, around this same time, and this is where it gets interesting, and I kind of want to ask you a question off of it. Around this same time, theoretically, if by all accounts, everything is correct, we should be getting a date for Spider-Man 2, which would be releasing around this same time. PlayStation says Spider-Man 2 is coming out this year. So, Pete, my question off of it is, if they were delaying the game out of the first half to get away from some of these, you know, other big name releases, namely Final Fantasy as well as Legend of Zelda, does it also backfire in a sense if it releases right around the same time of Spider-Man 2?
I mean, kind of, but I mean, you can't really always plan around everything. You can't play when you're playing a card game or any kind of game. You can't, if you play around everything, you can end up playing around nothing. So I think it has more to do with the fact that Redfall is coming out around the same time than worried about necessarily everything that PlayStation is going to do. Or what other gaming companies are going to do. But, I mean, also big name movie titles get pushed back and delayed because, like, oh, hey, there's this big one coming out. We'd rather you spend more focus on it you know, when there's got its own, like, weekend or a couple weeks by itself instead of, focusing on it when there's, like, 5 other titles also going to be out at the same time. So I think if they know that like Final Fantasy 16 is going to be coming out, another big name title is going to be coming out. I mean, if Spider-Man 2 comes out and ends up interfering with that, kind of so be it. But eventually, you got to also. It comes down to: do you believe in the Do you believe in the message? Do you believe in the mission? And like, if you don't believe in Starfield enough that you're going to push it back to get it out of like Final Fantasy 16 or whatever other games are coming out, And then Spider-Man 2 is coming out, and it's like, well, we want to dodge that too, so we're going to push it back even more. It's like eventually, it's like, well, if you don't believe in it, how's your fans supposed to believe in it too? Like, how are they supposed to believe that this game is better than those other games after a certain point? So, after a while, you just gotta kind of bite the bullet and be like, yeah, I mean, this is what we're gonna do, and we think it's a kick-ass game, and you're gonna play this over all the other ones.
Yeah, and it's important to note, again, the one thing that will, like, does it matter in that sense? And I threw it out more as a hypothetical, as you know, is like, again, it's coming to Game Pass, where Spider-Man 2 is going to be a full retail game. And, like, does it really impact you in that regard? The thing that's going to impact you most is when it comes to review, performance, all that jazz. And I do think Bethesda, because again, remember, this is the first new IP in a long time from Bethesda, like the Bethesda, development studio. I think a part of it is some of their hesitations because of the relaunch around Fallout 76 and the reception around that and how that didn't go well. And then Fallout 4, even though Fallout 4 ended up being, a critically acclaimed game and a lot of people love it, but at launch, it was very buggy. It was not a good look. Yeah. And I think like they don't want a repeat of that because this is the first flagship game coming out since they got acquired by Xbox. And I think it's one of those that want to put their best foot forward. They want to be in the best of graces they can with Xbox. Like, is there any like 100%. Bad things that are going to happen with Bethesda if it doesn't? No. Like, Bethesda's too big, too powerful, even within Xbox, that it's like they're at no risk of getting shut down. But it's just one of those things of, similarly, you get that new job, you might have all the years of experience, but you want to be like, look, this is why you brought me in, right? Type of thing.
Yeah. Prove their guess right. Prove why they, like you said, just have the pride of your work and prove that, hey, you made the right choice by going with us and not somebody else, or going with me and not somebody else.
Now, Pete, I know you may not be able to answer this question, but it's more, again, a hypothetical or a rhetorical question. But the thing to keep in mind is Xbox announced that, of course, Starfield is going to get its own direct, and it's going to be right after their showcase, which means that their showcase, they haven't announced how long it is, anything of that nature, at least that I've noticed, is their showcase likely will not include Starfield at all. And unlike, in the past where Bethesda released their big games, they would always dedicate the end of their E3 conferences to like a long section of the game. And so like, the one that always comes to mind is like Fallout 4. When Fallout 4 was being shown off right before its release, there was like 20 minutes of their whole showcase at the end that was just for them. But it was part of that showcase. What do you think that Xbox actually, like, what is the big grabber for the showcase itself outside of the Starfield showcase? Because Xbox, you got to imagine, they're having this showcase, and yes, they're going to transition it towards the end into the Starfield Direct.
Sure.
But they got to have, quote unquote, the pillar, right, of their showcase. What do you think it is?
I don't know. I mean, Starfield still is kind of like a seller in that, right? Like, they're not going to show a whole lot, but I mean, I would be shocked if they didn't show like a trailer and be like, hey, by the way, stick around after the showcase and we'll show you the direct for this for like 20 minutes. But for the reason to show up specifically for the showcase, kind of drawing a blank on there. Maybe that will be the Spider-Man 2 release, but I mean, that's more.
Wait, they grabbed it from PlayStation?
Yeah, that's true. That's right. It's owned by PlayStation. And I'm sorry. For some reason, I thought it was also available on Xbox now, but I don't know why. Look, man, I'm an idiot. Yeah, I mean, I'm drawing a blank on like what the big Xbox release is, especially since like they didn't have a big one last year, and like this year it's Redfall and Starfield through Bethesda, but like those are only the two ones. And I mean, Redfall will be out on at least a month about or thereabouts by the time the showcase happens, so it's not going to be Redfall. So I don't know. They got to find something. If Starfield is exclusively not going to be a part of the showcase itself, at more than just like a new trailer to tease to the direct afterwards. But people might tune in just because like, oh, hey, Starfield's going to be there, so we'll show up a little early and see what's going on. But it's one of those where, lead-in programming for TV. So like they'll get in like 10 or 15 minutes early, but I mean, directs are what, like 45, so you're still missing 30 minutes of that in that case.
Well, yeah, I mean, depending on how they do it, I think their showcase last year was almost an hour. I mean, typically their big showcase is just like with like PlayStation showcase, right? They're beefy things, but they're filled with like big stuff. And so, like you said, last year their big game was supposed to be Starfield, and then it ended up getting delayed, of course, right? The only thing that comes to mind, like I try to go through it, I know that they're gonna show Hellblade there. They're gonna show Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. It's got to be there. Hopefully, it has a release date by this point. The only thing though that I can think of that would be the big getter, because it would be in a sense an announcement as well as an attractive piece to it, is the Coalition, the studio behind Gears of War. They have been. Since they released Gears of War 5, if I remember correctly, is the most recent one. Since they released it, they had put out numerous, statements and articles about like, hey, basically they're going to go quiet for a bit, and because they're developing a new IP and next gen game and all that jazz. And that was about, I think, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago at this point, probably closer to 2. And so it's one of those things of, has there been enough time for them to finally show in detail their next game? Because that could be, of course, the big getter, the big attention grabber, because Halo is not going to be there. I mean, Halo Infinite already released, and we already know from all the rumors and reports that there's been like basically a big changeover. So Halo's not there. Forza Playground Studios that makes Forza Horizon, they've already kind of talked about that they're not going to have anything just yet, and obviously they're going to want to step on the toes of Forza Motorsport. So you try to go through some of their big games, and like that's the only one I could think of. So like that is interesting. In what does Xbox have to show at their showcase? Because is it going to be their first party titles, or is it a lot of third party titles that could be, of course, the big draw of, and it's available on Game Pass, and this is available on Game Pass, type of showcase.
I will say that really quick, we do question that, but also like the last time they had a showcase, they shadow dropped like a really popular game.
Yes.
That like nobody had any clues. So who knows what's working on in the background. I'd be shocked if something like that happened 2 showcases in a row. But I mean, who knows? Maybe they shadow dropped like a Starfield demo or something. Maybe they're further along than we think. I'd be surprised. Like I said, I'd be shocked they do something like that. But I mean, Nintendo also just shadow dropped a bunch of stuff the same day that they had their last, what do they call it? A direct? I don't know. They got a bunch
Direct. Yep.
They got a bunch of different names for all this stuff. So I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll have something major that they end up putting on Game Pass. Maybe they plan on it being a bunch of like new releases, like showing new projects or whatever. So I guess we'll find out. Hopefully it's a lot of fun though.
We will find out. Again, that is coming on June 11th. But of course, talking about games that got delayed, let's talk about another one. But of course, this is a report. Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League could be delayed to 2024. This is an article coming from GameSpot, written by Evan Campbell, and it goes as follows. Harley Quinn and Task Force X might not be seen this year in Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League after all. The game from Batman Arkham Knight developer Rocksteady could see a lengthier delay than even recently reported. Jeff Grubb of GameSpot's sister site Giant Bomb stated on his Game Mess Decides podcast via Idle Sloth on Twitter that he's gotten word Suicide Squad is getting pushed out of this year. Listen, I don't want to cause a panic or anything, but I heard it's not even coming this year, he said. I'm hearing 2024. Grubb does add that this stuff is hard to nail down for sure, but his source is a very good one. That would be further out than Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, which reported the day prior the game would still launch later this year. He mentioned that this delay was mainly for polish, not to overhaul the core gameplay that caused the backlash around Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad is a live service game that requires a constant internet connection, and a big gameplay showing at PlayStation State of Play saw pretty negative feedback last month. There hasn't been an official word out of Warner Brothers Games and Rocksteady that Suicide Squad is delayed. As such, the game is still currently slated to release May 26th. Now, Pete, we sat here, of course, following the State of Play, talking about our thoughts of the showcase and how we thought the game looked. And, of course, we mentioned about the backlash. So Are you surprised that there's a report that it could get delayed and could be delayed out of this year?
Yeah, pretty surprised. I mean, especially I feel kind of bad because they when they did the whole like 20 minutes thing, like they interviewed like the crew and staff and at the end, and they just seemed so positive about the experience and everything, and like it was just like, man, I feel bad, and I kind of like it's just like, hey, we're gonna go and try to bring a bunch of stuff. If it's delayed till next year, like Grubb is saying, by the way, Jeff Grubb, put some conviction in your reporting, okay? Like, this is the second time, all right? Like, you're just like, I don't want to cause a panic. This is what I'm hearing. Don't get mad if it's not right, but I'm hearing it. It's like, no. Either it's happening or it's not, all right? Put your money where your mouth is, man. Like, this whole
Jeff
thing where
Grubb,
you're this whole mealy mouth thing, it's like, no, knock it off. Like, it's either a thing or it's not. You're not going to cause a panic because a game get delayed. Calm down, okay? It's not like you're doing a bank run like with SVB or something.
Jeff, Pete is coming after you.
I'm coming after you. I'm coming for your job. Anyway, sorry. This is the second time that it happened. It made me laugh when I was reading the paragraph with it. But if it's getting delayed till next year, like that feels a lot different than just like, oh, we got to polish the game a little bit. That feels like something more major. Like, I don't know about a complete like core game play overhaul, but like it feels like more than just like, yeah, we just want to touch up some things. We want to make the graphics, make it run a little smoother. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, this is only March, so it was supposed to be released in May, and I want to be clear about this. I believe the last report, I mean, it says in the article, there hasn't been any delay announced at all. Like, this game is still technically supposed to be coming out in 2.5 weeks or 2.5 months. Yeah. So that's kind of the wild part about all this, is that this is the second report in a week or two that this game is getting delayed. And the first one was like, it's getting delayed till later this year, and now it's getting delayed. A report is getting delayed till 2024. Which, because there's two different reports, and both Grubb and Schreier are both like pretty major freelance reporters, I believe. And I think Grubb works specifically for Giant Bomb, but Schreier, I believe, is freelance.
No, Schreier is a full-time Bloomberg reporter.
Oh, he's Bloomberg, full-time Bloomberg. Well, I think he was freelance. Anyway, sorry, Schreier, Jeff Schreier. I'm sure you listen to this podcast as well as
Heck
Grubb.
Yeah, he does.
But anyway, it's kind of surprising they're getting mixed messaging, because that kind of implies that those are two different like departments or two different heads that are like talking about, or something in the middle of that has maybe convinced them to push it back even further, both of which are kind of, I wouldn't say cause for alarm, but definitely eyebrow raising, and trying to determine like, well, what would determine the cause to push it back from being pushed back, or decide to being pushed back like 4 months to like maybe like 9 or 10 or whatever.
Yeah, it's one of those things with this that I'm not surprised that they may delay it because of the reaction around it. Now, do they delay it later to this year or next year? Depends on, exactly as you said, what are they trying to focus on? Because yes, the fan reaction wasn't positive around it, but regardless, in a sense, in my opinion, I should say, whether you looks like Pete might have spilled his water a little bit.
I kicked the garbage can and it sounded loud, and I didn't know if the microphone picked it up or not, because it sounded loud in my headphones.
No, it didn't. I heard a little bit of noise, but I didn't know what it was.
My bad.
Didn't sound too loud, but it's delaying it a couple of months and delaying it even into next year is not enough time to overhaul a game, especially if it was built as a live service game, right? Because that is the core component. And so if people are like thinking that this delay may all of a sudden mean, hey, they're dropping the live service aspect and they're going to go full on, single RPG like the old Batman Arkham series games, that's not happening. That's not happening. Could they be polishing that experience? Could they be making slight tweaks to that live service experience? Yes, those could happen. But like an overhaul of the game itself, that's not enough time. I mean, we know from the lengthy development processes of other games, from reports of the game developers, that these takes years to build, right? And so you're in a sense, less than a year delay is not going to all of a sudden allow you to completely reform the game. But Could this be a delay of them trying to work out the messaging? Because like you said, I mean, the game developers have at least said in that video, and of course they may have just chosen all the people who are just like super positive about the game, or of course the people are just like, you know, really, you know, commendable at their job and they can fake a smile when it comes to, you know, being on those type of videos. But like they did seem like hyped about what they were building, what they were doing. Is it a matter of trying to change the marketing and get people to understand this live service component better? Could it be trying to work out a demo to get it in the players' hands and be like, look, this is what the game's going to be like, so they can try it firsthand and see how quote unquote fun it is, right? Could it be that essentially they needed to delay it because the roadmap of development, because obviously it's a live service game, you got to have some things to release over time, is not as far along as they need it, so they're delaying it so that, you know, window of time between releases or content drops is shorter. Like there's so many things that could happen of it, but the thing that needs to happen, I think, is if the game is delayed, they probably should get that message out as soon as possible, because as you said, the game releases in May, and 2.5 months will not be long for them. Like that will fly very quickly when you're in the development side. Now for us, you know, the gamer side, 2.5 months might take a while, but in the development side, that will fly by. You need to get that message out there as soon as possible, and you know, essentially allow people to know whether they're getting this in May or whether they're gonna wait.
I have one quick question, not to throw out another conversation. What would be the impetus, the reasoning for like not announcing the delay as soon as possible? Like, there doesn't seem to me there's be any reason to, like, whether you announce it like tomorrow versus announcing it like, you know, first weekend of April or something like that. Why not just do it as soon as possible?
I would think it would just be around the messaging of the delay. You know, like with these reports, because in a sense, these reports of this delay are coming fairly quickly after that PlayStation State of Play, right? So maybe it was like a recent discussion of like, hey, we need to delay the game, and maybe it is the message, like the matter of now the marketing team and the development studio are working on the messaging of that delay instead of it just being a straight like, hey, we're delaying the game. Maybe they're trying to say like, develop why they're delaying the game. Maybe they're trying to pinpoint, okay, we're delaying it, but what time frame are we looking like? Do we have an actual date we can delay it to, or are we going to just delay it to, you know, a window? And if you delay it to a window, I think that's when for fans, right, that becomes a little more concerning. So I think it might be they're trying to make sure that messaging is right to convey to the consumer.
I mean, I guess this report also came out like less than a week ago, and the State of Play was only 2.5 weeks ago. So I guess that would have been a really short turnaround, and all things considered. It feels like it's been a lot longer personally. I don't know about you, but
oh yeah, it is.
Since the February 23rd was the State of Play, I mean, it's only really been 2.5 weeks since that happened. So I mean, all of a sudden turning around also probably doesn't look great if you just like 2.5 weeks. All right, you know, this game that we were super big on the State of Play, we're not so big on it as much anymore. So maybe there's also that angle too, along with, like you said, the marketing aspect of trying to figure out the messaging of what we want to do for this State of Play. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we'll see, of course, if that gets delayed. But let's talk about people who are disappointed. Disappointed Square, as always. We're going to Destructoid for this article. It is written by Eric Van Allen, and it is Square Enix says Forspoken sales have been, quote, lackluster. And it goes as follows. Square Enix has released an outline of its fiscal results briefing from February 3rd, in which it says Forspoken sales have been lackluster. The action RPG arrived just a few months ago, but the trend so far seems to have not lived up to Square Enix's expectations. The publisher also drew attention to its reception and reviews, which President Yosuke Matsuda characterized as challenging. Reviews of Forspoken, which we released on January 24th, 2023, have been challenging. However, the game has also received positive feedback on its action features, including its parkour and combat capabilities, so it has yielded results that will lead to improvement of our development capabilities of other games in the future. That said, its sales have been lackluster, and while the performance of new titles with February and March release dates will be the ultimate determinant, we see considerable downside risk to our FY 2023/3 earnings, which I think stands for their third quarter. Additionally, Square Enix noted a year-over-year dip in the HD games net sales segment. The publisher attributes this partly to a challenging bar set by the previous year's releases, but also because many of the, quote, new, small, and mid-sized titles Square Enix launched did not perform as well as expected. Of course, let's just talk about the quick things here. After receiving the game, of course, not everyone thought the game was really bad. There were some good reviews, but it did get middling reviews. And then after the release of the game, it was announced shortly after the February 3rd briefing that Luminous Productions had been absorbed back into Square Enix, and President Matsuda has announced he'll be stepping down in June. So it's unclear with all these signals for the future of Square Enix, which is now a big old pile of Final Fantasy, as they put it in this article. Hopefully the QA comments near the end of the outline, hoping that we, quote, look forward to the blockchain game Square Enix plans to launch, is not an indication of that future. So Pete, what do you think about the the comments from the president, as well as, of course, the look to blockchains?
So I know we made it regular to joke about the meme where the disappointed dad Square Enix. I do think there is some merit here for that, not necessarily because this game is should have been like super high rated or something like that, but mainly because this is kind of like Square Enix's first sort of major foray into like the new PS5 like era, right? Like this is like, I know Final Fantasy VII Remake was like eventually ported over, but originally that was a PS4 game. I know the shoot, what's the not expansion, but essentially an expansion title of it was.
Integrate.
I forget.
Integrate.
I know that
Intermission
was
is the name of the DLC. Integrate is the complete package.
The whole thing. I know Intermission was specifically made for for the PS5, but this is like the first one that's for this generation of gaming specifically, almost. So it's kind of a letdown. We were talking earlier about Bethesda wanting to put their best foot forward to prove to Xbox and Microsoft that they made the right call in purchasing them and like going along with them and letting them do their thing. And I mean, it's kind of the same thing here. Like if you have in your first game, you want it to be a banger, you want it to be gangbusters, you want everybody to love it, and that's obviously not what happened here. I will say that I don't think it'll behoove Square Enix to go not necessarily a pile of Final Fantasy games. I don't think that's necessarily the case of what would happen, but just being like major launch titles like that, or just like focusing on that specifically, I don't know if that would be the best way for them to go about this. And I think having some more mid-range games, some like lighter games like are good, and like also it keeps people working for one. It keeps developers on the staff and things like that, but also like Forspoken, like for instance, people commented on the action and the parkour and like, maybe things that you wouldn't experiment in your major titles. Maybe you found like actually like it didn't work necessarily in this game, but this is something that did work, and maybe something we can go back to and for like other games and stuff like that. And we were talking about similar way to 343 Studios when we were talking about how Halo might be need new quote unquote developers, or 343 needs to go work on something else. If you stay focused on the same thing so long, you end up losing sight of other things that you could like learn, or new things you could try, because you're just like, no, this has got to be Final Fantasy, or this has got to be if you're focusing on Street Fighter, it's got to be a fighting game, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And if you're only focusing on that, maybe you don't have Street Fighter duels, or you don't have tap-in or something like that, and it's just like, oh hey, there's this other stuff we could try out that actually might be successful. So I don't think, while I get why Square Enix with their first major foray into the PS5 era of game platforms is disappointing in this instance. I think just solely focusing on like major titles and like pulling back on smaller titles is going to be a mistake, especially if they start focusing majorly on blockchain games. But yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, I hope that if anything, the blockchain games are one. It is a blockchain game, and that's about it. And they don't kind of continue going that. I also will say, like, it is of course easy or known to like kind of poke fun at Square Enix that they are, just the Final Fantasy studio, but like we clearly see that is not the case when you look at all the games that release, over the time from Square Enix. And so of course that's still not going to be the case. I mean, Octopath Traveler was there. Obviously they do Dragon Quest. They do the Saga games. They just released a remake of Saga Minstrel Strong. Of course, Forspoken, and it's important to note as well, like, I wonder what the expectations for Forspoken were, and I'm sure they were high. Like, I'm not trying to sugarcoat that, because of course they marketed it, so much, and they expected a lot of things. But like, the game did end up, for those that it really connected with. A lot of people did like it, as you said, and they commented on here too. Is like the action has been like really widely received on how the parkour and the traversal and the combination of spells. But I do have, like, from the NPD, which tracks game sales, NPD group. They look at the game sales in North America. In January, Forspoken was number 7 in NPD. It was the 7th highest selling game in January. I wonder what it looked like in February. We saw that on Steam. It was not in the top 20 on Steam, but Steam sales are different because it separates the games by editions. So if someone bought the Forspoken Standard Edition and someone else bought the Forspoken Deluxe Edition, those would be calculated as 2 different sales. And so, like, in the top, I think it was 30, Forspoken appeared, but it appeared twice, one for Standard and one for Deluxe. So again, I wonder what those sales actually were, and did it sell enough that anywhere else it might have been positive? But of course, because of the money investment into Forspoken, the marketing investment into it, did it not reach enough? Now, it's important to also note Luminous Studios, even though they're getting folded back into Square Enix, they have said that the DLC for Forspoken is coming out. So, like, those that are looking forward to that DLC can still get it. They are still working on a patch to update it. So, it's one of those things of how much is it disappointed Square Enix and how much of it actually was, in a sense, a flop. And that's the the hard thing, because of how often Square Enix has said things were disappointing in sales.
Yeah, when you cry wolf all the time, and also we're not in the room, like, with the expectation of what they placed on it. Again, I understand why, like you said, kind of understanding wanting to do well, but also, like, again, if we're just like, well, you got to sell 10 million units, it's like, well, not many games do that. Yeah. So what are we doing talking about here? Kind of thing.
That's my thing. It's like I think it's no brainer that Forspoken underperformed at what everyone else would have thought. Like, that's just like the way it was marketed, all that jazz. There's no way you can deny that. But it's like I said, I'm curious of what was the expectations, and then of course what are the actual sales, because like there are things that are pointing to, despite the critics, it did sell fairly well enough during these like short periods. Yeah. But what did that actually translate in overall sales? And then again, how does that compare to what disappointed Square thought when it comes to those things? But maybe we'll find out that information sooner or later. Who knows? Maybe you want to pick up Forspoken soon. You should go pick it up and try it out. But maybe you want to get a brand new game, not something that released back in January. Well, I'm going to tell you about games that are coming out this week that you can spend your hard-earned cash on. And it starts with Monday, March 13th. You have Rough Justice 84 for PC. Tuesday, March 14th. You have Escape from the Red Planet for PC. The Forest Cathedral for Xbox Series and PC. Valheim for Xbox Series and Xbox One. That is going to Game Pass. The Legend of Heroes Trails to Azure for PS4, Switch, and PC. The Wreck for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Hell of an Office PC for early access. Wednesday, March 15th, you have Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem for PS5 and Xbox Series. Flooded for PC. Thursday, March 16th, you have Post Void PS4, Switch. Anno 1800 for PS5 and Xbox Series. The Dark Pictures Switchback VR for PSVR 2. Alice Gear Aegis CS Concerto Memento of Simultrix, PS5, PS4, and Switch. River Tales, Stronger Together for PC. And then Friday, March 17th, you have Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and The Lost Demon for Switch. Peppa Pig, World Adventures for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. WWE 2K23 for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Toy Tactics for PC, Steam Early Access. And I wanted to pass along the Diablo 4 beta is going to be launching on Friday, March 17th for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and that will run until the 19th. Pete, any of these catching your attention?
That's not a long time for the Diablo 4 beta. Anyway, I'm never going to end up beating, I think, any Legend of Heroes game just because of how long they all are. And I keep trying. I really do. I've actually been playing on and off since the start of this year. The first one, Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky. And it's just like, this game is fun. This game is fun, and it's just really long. But I will say, Legend of Heroes Trails to Azure, if you like any RPG, you got to try at least one Legend of Heroes game. They're all great, just really long. So that one's in there. WWE 2K23, I'm a wrestling fan. I feel obligated to mention that. And also, kind of a smaller one, River Tales Stronger Together. I really like the vibe of that game. It's kind of like an action platformer kind of style of game. So I was really interested in how that one's going to go because I kind of enjoyed watching the previews of that one.
So yeah, I'm going to say and shout out to a friend that we lost not too long ago. But yes, go play The Legend of Heroes Trails to Azure. Well, you should play Trails to Zero first because that is technically the second part of the Crossbell arc. But that is again a series that me and my friend Sharif were very, very big fans of, and he was super excited to play this. So go pick that game up and have a blast with it. I also do want to shout out WWE 2K23 because everyone might remember, might know. If you don't know, if this is your first time here, we also run a wrestling organization here called PSWF that is based in WWE 2K22. And so it will be converting over at some point over to WWE 2K23. But of course, it's going to take some time because we can't just carry everything over, which they should just update it so we can and make things move along faster.
It is really weird that they can't do that.
Yeah, especially when it's on the same console. Like, come on.
Are they also made? Are they made by different developers too, or
no,
are they still the same developer?
It's the same.
Yeah, none of that makes any damn sense. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, is that and then the last one that I wanted to shout out was the Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and The Lost Demon. I know it's different than the normal Bayonetta games, but I've been seeing some pretty good things about it. So I think people who are interested in getting into Bayonetta, of course, this is, again, different, but it does give you the background of Cereza. Go check it out. Try it out. See how it goes. I'll also be playing the Diablo 4 beta. I'll fully admit that. I cannot wait to play that. But
I work all next weekend, so I can't.
Well, that sucks. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind trying it, but.
All right, well, everybody, that is all that we have for the One More Game podcast. Pete, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with before we send them off into the work week?
Have a good week. We'll be back next week and better than ever.
Heck yeah, we will. So everybody, make sure that you are here. You hit that subscribe button so you can watch more of the podcast here in the future. But everybody, that is all that we have here for the One More Game podcast. I've been one of your co-hosts, Jeremy Culver, a.k.a. Darce. This has been the California Thirst Quencher, Pete Legia, and we really enjoy bringing this to you. So as always, everybody, stay hydrated, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep on gaming. We'll see you all on the next episode.